Let's start with any injury updates and any squad updates in general.
No, pretty much all where we are at the moment. So yeah, nothing too much to update on that front.
Looking back to the Millwall game, it was another case of one good half and one bad half. If at the end of the season that's what cost you that inconsistency, how frustrating would that be?
It hasn't cost us yet, so we're there's something we can do about it. You know, we're right in it now, so that nothing's over. I think the important thing is feeling it and learning it really, and we've spoken about that as a group of drawing on the experiences. You know, we've had some really good experiences, done some really good things throughout the season in different ways. Sometimes we put games together and runs together. Sometimes it's been within games, and then it's that element of the drop off in certain ways. And it actually wasn't a whole bad performance second half. You know, they had a little spell after half time, and then they had a spell around the goal. And other than that, we were still all right. We were still decent enough. And first half was the chance to make the difference really for us. But we still had moments second half. We still put them under pressure. But in the end, that's the difference. Them moments, and we got to flip them in our favour. So, but I think drawing on the experience for the whole season as a group, been together quite some time now over that, and obviously January kind of sparked us again, and we've settled into that. So we got to draw on that as a group and use all them ups and downs to make it happen in the next couple of weeks.
And you talked about making a difference. Now that your place in the playoffs isn't guaranteed, of course, and you kind of rely on other teams to fail, is it a case of you can't afford to drop a single point in the final few games of the season?
Well, not totally. You know, if we win all our games, then we've obviously got Coventry to play. You know, so we're not necessarily relying on other teams to fail. I think it's we're still in there, and I've said it. You know, I think 4 games feels quite quick and not long left, but there's a lot that can go on in that time. There's a lot that could go on over this weekend. 2 games in 4 days. There's a lot that can change and flip in different directions, and that's in a matter of days. And even in one game on Friday, you know, it's a really big game for us. Obviously, big game for Plymouth. A lot can go on during the game, and there's ups and downs, and there's all sorts of waves with it. So at the moment, we're focusing on one game at a time as a group. Because we know what it can look like and how quickly it can go in different directions.
When there's a chance to watch the teams around you like Coventry playing on Monday, will you be taking that chance to watch them or just focusing on them?
No, it's not really, doesn't necessarily help, to be honest with you. I think what helps is knowing what teams we're playing against, what they're doing, trying to prepare for that. And I think I've said it enough. I think using the energy to be most efficient really, and using it for us to get the best out of us.
And you talked about your next upcoming games. Of course, you've got Plymouth next on Friday, bottom of the table. How dangerous can they be given their own position in the league? Yeah,
I mean, it's probably an obvious thing for us to say, but I think it's pretty clear. You know, that league position really it doesn't make a lot of sense at times, especially at this stage of the season. What results can be put out there all sorts of different ways. We've seen it in the last few weeks. So it doesn't count for anything for us going into the game. You know, it's preparing, like I said, for us. What do we need to do well? What we know we can do well, and we need to do more of. All them sort of things. But certainly in terms of league position, it's really totally irrelevant for us going into this game.
All right. Cheers, Michael.
Wait, I know you talked about their league position being irrelevant, Michael. Obviously, when you're down there, you're scrapping for your lives, and clearly their recent results show that. I mean, is that going to be a factor on Friday in terms of, you know, needing to match or even better that kind of fight that they'll match?
Yeah, and I think that's, when I say irrelevant, I think that's the actual position's irrelevant, but it can the emotion and what the feeling of the game doesn't feel that there's doesn't always feel that that's the case in terms of league position. I think it brings a different side to the game, you know, and we've all got our own agenda. We've all striving to do that. We've got an awful lot to play for, and an awful lot that means to us, that we, you know, that drive and that desire to kind of make it happen for ourselves. But we totally understand and respect the position that Plymouth are in as well, and the emotions that they're bringing to the game. So it's a big part of the game, you know. We've got to understand that. We've got to feel it. We got to go through that, and that's part of these games, bigger games, when there's so much on. It's who deals with it the best.
Yeah, it's been, you know, kind of topsy-turvy season, and the players have consistently kind of bounced back from setbacks. And have you seen, you know, that kind of same attitude throughout this week since the last 2 games, and, you know, that kind of belief that this is still achievable?
Yeah, definitely the belief's there, because it is, you know, and it's not. It's a tough challenge, of course. I think any of the teams in and around us, it's going into this stage of the season, it's a tough challenge because it's tight. We're not coming from a crazy way back. It won't be made up as a miracle if we make the playoffs. You know, we're close enough where we've got an opportunity to, and it's realistic. I don't think we're which is a positive. You know, we're not striving to do something no one's done before or anything like that. It's just, you know, trying to win games and we'll have a great chance if we win the games ourselves. So we understand it's going to be tough, it's going to be tight, it's going to be challenges emotionally, there's going to be ups and downs, of course there is, but that's just the stage of the season, and that's pretty normal.
Yeah, you spoke about, you know, Millwall and that kind of moment, just not coming, the ball not quite dropping for you. That's happened in some games, but then there's been some games where, you know, you free scored, you've looked brilliant attacking it. You know, can you put your finger on why there's that kind of inconsistency within the team, and how do you kind of turn that dial to make it positive for you?
Yeah, there's a number of things. I think there's a little bit on individuals and moments, and then maybe opportunities that come our way to take, and then you're never going to take all the chances, you're never going to score goals at that rate all the time, but knowing that we can do, and we've done it before, and what that feels like, what it needs to look like, that gives us the confidence and the belief to know that we're capable of doing it. And but of course it's in the moment, it's on the night, it's on the day, and you got to feel it and you got to make it work.
Yeah. George, how's he? Is he close to being back in training? Has he been back in training?
Yeah, he's back training with a group. Yeah.
Yeah. And how is he in terms of for Friday? Is that a bit too soon, or will he be back in the squad? Or
yeah, hopefully he'll be back in around the squad. Yeah. Again, he hasn't done an awful lot of training, but he's trained with us, so it's good to have him back. It's another one in the right direction.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, there's a few timely ones. Obviously, Rav's come back, played a few now, deal by Riley came on against Millwall, so that kind of injury picture, kind of, you know, looking better at the right time. Yeah,
I think it evolves at times. You know, we've certainly been hit by it quite severely over the season, and we kind of just ended up rolling. We've tried to make the best of it as we've gone, but it's certainly proved challenging at times. But to get the boys back in around it and get that group feeling stronger for moments, and being able to deal with different situations in games as the games develop and move into the later stages, I think it's important that we've got those options.
Yeah, just finally for me, obviously Friday will probably be you know, an emotional day, I guess, for Morgan against his former side. Can he almost use that as fuel, if you like, going into the game? Yeah,
I think it's past experience. Really. I think you've got to be pretty cold about it, to be honest, and take that out of it. I think it's irrelevant. You know, we're in it to do a job. That's how I always cope with it. I think you've got to pull yourself away from that, and it's always going to be there, of course, in the background. And the respect is always there, and the understanding of what's going on is always there. But I think in the moment, that's part of performing. That's part of that elite performance, really, of having your head in the right place and being cold enough to perform. And all the boys that challenging at different times. You know, Morgan done great for Plymouth, had a great time there. He's here now, and hopefully he does well on the weekend.
Yeah, he probably hasn't had the start he would have loved to have had at the club, and still waiting for that first goal. So I guess it's one of them where, you know, sometimes football writes scripts, and that could be one. Yeah,
maybe. Look, I'm not. You know, I'm not chasing and desperate for Morgan's first goal. You know, I think as a team we want to play well and win, and he can contribute in different ways. You know, I think he's settled in really well. I think he's looked really dangerous in games, in certain games. You know, he's hugely talented. He's desperate to come here and do well and learn and improve. You know, so however he impacts the game, you know, if it's in our direction, then great. You know, I'm really not putting any pressure or expectation on when he gets that goal. If he gets it, great. If we win the game, fantastic.
Cheers.
How's Neto doing?
Yeah, he's alright. He's not back training with us, to be honest. He's not back training. He's desperate. He's desperate. He's trying everything, but at this stage he's not quite ready.
And what's the crack with Ben? Because obviously after this weekend you're looking at the last 2 games. You get to the stage where you might have to write that off for him, or
Yeah, it gets to a stage we're not writing anything off just yet, as you probably understand. But it's yeah, I mean, at this stage of the season, it's pretty late, so it's obviously not looking very likely anytime soon.
So it's still as it was with he's still at Liverpool?
Yeah, there's nothing's changed just yet.
Just asking about substitutes. I know obviously we talked about it after games, talked about the weekend and after Bristol City as well. When I was looking, I think 3 of the last 4 games, the 66th minute is when you've made your first change. Is there any reason why it's around that time in a game?
Not really. No, there's not, to be honest. I think it's just the feel of the game and yeah, just the feel of the game. I mean, the game the other day, for instance, you know, we 5 or 6 minutes before we made it, we started making plans to make it and getting the boys ready and having an idea that we wanted to try and make a difference. So the clock in some ways it's not how we make the decisions, you know. It's and it is what it is, and it just so happens just as if we were going to do that, they scored. But so yeah, in terms of the question, time wise, no, it's total coincidence.
What is it you're looking for when you're planning your changes? What?
How long we got? I mean, it depends. Sometimes it's straightforward. Sometimes it's quite obvious. Other times it might be certain spaces, certain ways we want to attack, certain runs we want to make, certain attributes that we feel we can get in. Sometimes it's space in the middle of the pitch. Sometimes it's space behind, wide, whatever it is. Most of the time it's made on how we can make a difference in the game positively. The odd time, you know, we've had to put maybe an extra midfielder on or an extra defender on when it's getting late in games. There's all sorts of different things, and players' attributes, who's tired, who's feeling it, who's looking strong. There's all sorts of, whether it's physical, mental, tactical, it's managing the game in the stadium. There's all sorts of different things that come into it.
And when an opposition manager makes a change and that impacts a game, do you have to choose between trying to counteract that while also still trying to focus on what your team are trying to do and what your...
Yeah, that's the balance. I mean, starting lineups are the same, you know. It's certain teams, you get an idea what they're going to be like. Everyone's got a right to change and do something different, and that's part of it really. If some teams change a lot, which in some ways makes it hard to predict, but they change a lot, so it's new every week for themselves as well. We're pretty consistent. I think we feel like it gives us the benefit. We know what we are, where we are, who's around what positions, and that kind of feeling of calmness to a point. Again, that makes probably other teams have an idea of what we're going to be like. So there's so many different ways of doing it, you know. And but I think there's a little bit of an individuals as well within the squad, and that's why the variety is important of players being able to play very similar positions but in different ways. And so yeah, it's a constant tinker and decisions that we kind of try and make to obviously make the best results. You know, everyone's trying to do the same thing.
And in terms of the league, I know you kind of only focus on the next game and won't think about totals, but it's very rare that a team gets in the top 6 with fewer than 70 points. Do you think you might have to win all 4 remaining games?
We may well have to, yeah. We might not have to. Right now, it doesn't really matter. You know, I think the next game certainly matters an awful lot. Monday, then I think the picture after Monday will be a lot clearer probably than it is now. So yeah, I mean, in some ways it's a pointless answer. We might have to, but there's certainly cases if we're not. You know, is all teams going to go and win 4 games? You know, it probably hasn't happened at points during the season, so it just shows you that anything can happen.
And I'd seen Frank Lampard after their game on Monday night kind of stressing that his point to the players is they were 19th when he took over or wherever they were, and to kind of keep that in mind. Do you almost have to do the opposite in that blank out the frustrations of what's gone before and almost treat it as forget all that, it starts now, we just have to...
Yeah, it's game on, you know. We're here and now, this is where we're at, this is the situation. I think you can go back to the earlier there about drawing on the experiences of knowing what you can do, what you're capable of, how you can perform, and then what's at stake, you know, and thriving on it, enjoying it and being excited by it, because this is it, you know. It's 4 games, mini season, 1 game at a time, and that's it. We've been a bit higher in the league at times, we've been a bit low in the league at times. It's about now, really. That's what counts.